cities, flowing waters, everything's so pretty. When I dream so clearly. My place of refuge, swear I wanna be. 304, that's all I ever live for. 304, alright. 304, that's all I ever live for. 304, alright. Far away, touch so nice. So we got love with a little bit of sugar and spice. That's right. Friendly smiles, that's all you'll ever see. Mountain heaven, no place I'd rather be. 304, that's all I ever live for. 304, alright, it's alright. 304, that's all I ever live for. 304, live for. Alright, winding roads take me home to a place where it's blue and gold, scenic sights and ooh, sweet honeybee. Magic views, a beautiful place to be. 304, that's all I ever live for. 304, alright, it's alright. 304, that's all I ever live for. 304, alright. If you've never been, I think you should go. Place to know. 304, so nice. If you've never been, I think you should go. Place to know. 304, alright.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. I'm Greg Christ, your host for the show. We got a good one on tap for tonight, and we can't wait to get started. We hope the little preview there got you as fired up as it did us. A little audio problem there with the first video of Eugene Napoleon running the football, but I think you got the point by watching the video. And then, of course, his beautiful and talented wife singing, Naya singing 304. What a voice that lady has, and she's something else. And again, we hope you enjoyed this show tonight. We've been looking forward to this one here on the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. Make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube. That's the way we keep these things going. And it always helps us to do that. You're free to comment and jump in on the show anytime you want. That is encouraged. We'd like for you to jump in and ask questions, comments, whatever you would like. That would be great. Now I got a text there from Timothy saying, I got your tire fixed. Yes, finally. I sat on the side of Interstate 70 down here, just past Washington, PA, for 4 hours the other night, waiting on some help for a flat tire. So that was great. I'm not going to keep yabbering here. We got some stuff to talk about, as always. WVU sports. We'll touch on a little bit of all of them, or most of them anyway, tonight. But we're about to bring on one of my favorite people. I've gotten to know this guy over the last year and a half. Never like personally met, but we have talked, texted, we video talked. We watched shows together. He's been on my show. Of course, I have Coach Chris several times. He's become one of my favorite person. He always was one of my favorite players. Watching him back when he played, I was there every game and watched him, and I loved watching him run the football. And now I enjoy talking to him and hearing about his life. I think you'll be fascinated when we do get him on here to hear about all the things that he's involved with. And I asked him the last time he was on my show, how in the world do you do all this stuff and have time to get it done? It's absolutely amazing. I'll let him tell you all about that. So without further ado, let's bring on our very special guest, former Mountaineer great, Eugene Napoleon. Eugene, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Coach, what's going on with you, man? Thank you for having me, as always. I greatly appreciate it.
Man, you guys, I've talked to you several times, and I follow you closely, your social media. You do some motivational speaking on YouTube. I watch those. I've got your book, one of them, and I watch your wife's videos and listen to her. What an amazing talent she is. I've sat back and thought many times, how do these two people get all this talent? And then I look at myself and I'm like, man, alive, I got left off the bus somehow. Man. Something happened here. But anyway, you are involved in tons of things, and it's so interesting to hear. I mean, you're a teacher, you're a speaker, you're a manager, producer. You do all these things, and first of all, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about Naya. Tell us about her and what she does. I think that's fascinating.
Definitely. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, as always. Well, it's interesting. This is, let me see, our 28th year in the music entertainment industry. And it's so ironic. We were just in the studio Saturday. So her new single we're working on is called We Outside. So it was produced by Grammy nominated producer Kenny Black, the Music Machine. He's one of her producers, and he did an excellent job, as always, with the music. So it's completed. He's going to mix it, and then we'll get it mastered, and it'll be ready for release probably here within the next 3 weeks. So we're really happy about that. And ironically enough, she just received 2 nights ago. There's a company, shout outs to Rashad Ali, Star Soul Fame Honors. It's a company that he's a historian in the music entertainment industry. And anytime you reach a certain plateau, he's going to call you up. He's going to let you know. She just received the 2024 Global Legends Award. So it's almost like winning the Lifetime Achievement Award. Right. So it's for artists that have had #1 hit records in multiple countries, not just here in the United States. So on top of that, it's a beautiful award. Just received it, like I said, 2 nights ago. And with that came the Most Valuable Playlist Artist Award, which means if you have, again, a certain amount of #1 hit records and you're on the charts, you win an award for that. So she has 20 #1 hit singles.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I'll say this, we thank God for it all, because you can't do this by yourself. So we've been blessed. Like I said, Kenny Black, the Music Machine, is a Grammy nominated producer. You know, our cousins is one half of the legendary group PM Dawn. They're from the 90s and the early 2000s. He's also, Jared Cortez is also one of her producers. So musically, we feel as though we have some of the best in the business. My wife writes all her own, lyrics to all her own songs. So we own, all of the masters and the copyrights to that. And I'm going to tell you, Coach, listen, we've been blessed. At the end of the day, we like to think we put out meaningful messaging in the music. So the songs that she writes, they all have a message to it. They all have a theme to it. And I thank God for that. That's really what it's all about.
I will tell folks out there, if they haven't had a chance to listen, they need to go listen to her. She has a beautiful voice. It's just so nice to listen to, and such good music. And I don't care what genre of music you like, you're going to like this. It's just good to listen to. It's just nice to listen to, and she has a beautiful voice. And hats off to her. It's amazing.
Thank you.
You on that now. We're going to talk about you a little bit. You teach, you speak, motivational speaking. You write books, you produce, you manage. Talk a little bit about what the things that you do, outside of your talks you do on YouTube. Talk about all these other things that you're involved with, and I know I was a teacher for 32 years, so I always give kudos to you for that. I've heard great stories about your teaching, and that I think is one of the most important things that you can do. But talk a little bit about the things that you do.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, this is my 26th year teaching special ed, and I've been blessed over the years. Just last year, I was honored with winning the Governor's Teacher of the Year award here in the state of New Jersey. Right. 3-time Special Education Teacher of the Year. And it's an amazing thing because, again, outside of everything else, that is the most important thing you can do. Whenever you can give something back and save a youth, or inspire them to do something in a productive and positive way, that's what it's all about. So I started writing books many, many years ago, but the last two, over the last few years, Reflections and Reflections 2.0, are motivational quotes books. Because as we all know, sometimes a lot of kids, they don't like to read. So when I put out my first book back in, I think it was 2005, 2006, that was an actual, long, well-written book, but I understood that kids don't like to read 200-page, 300-page books. So it dawned on me a few short years ago, Coach, you know what, let me hit them where it makes sense. I do a lot of critical thinking in my room along with the other educational component. I said, so I guarantee you, a kid would probably pick up on a good quote, and they'll be able to write short narratives and short essays from good quotes. So that's what I decided to do. This last book last year, I put it out and I listen, to God be given all the glory. It became a Barnes & Noble's bestseller in a matter of a month and a half. And it followed the trends from the first two books. So it became my third best-selling book. And I have to credit a lot of the school districts. They purchased the books in bulk because they want the kids to use it, social emotional learning, critical thinking, making better decisions, time management, all of those different things. And it's worked out beautifully, I have to admit. So I thank God for that. Outside of being in the music business and being a motivational speaker and all of that stuff, being a business manager and consultant, that's the most important. One of the most important aspects to me is being a special ed teacher, because I get a chance to work with the youth that everybody deems to be difficult to work with. You know what I mean? So it's great to have the opportunity to at least give them something back, something that I've learned over, my teaching career and over my sports career and being a former sports agent and all that stuff. I get to wrap all those things up in a gumbo soup, so to speak, and feed it to them. Let them digest it, let them understand and talk about many different things. So it's great to have, I think, a diverse background, because I get to share all of that with my students.
Two things there. Number one, um, your teaching. My first, like I said, I taught 32 years. My first 3 years, I taught special ed, and might have been the most rewarding 3 years of my life teaching that. It was fascinating and so much fun, and they're eager to learn, and they are difficult sometimes, but once you start to relate to them, there's no more special. I tell you what. So I had a blast teaching those guys. As far as the quote books and your talks you do on YouTube, one of the things I noticed about that as I flipped through the pages of it and read the quotes and the messages, um, just about every one of them, and I know I've relayed this to you before through text message, I can relate, or people can relate to a situation in their life where they have faced exactly what you're talking about. And you talk about how to deal with things and how to handle things. And I noticed in those pages, through my coaching, teaching, all the things that I've done, just about every one of them were relatable. And I could say, you know what, I remember that very situation right there when that happened, and it's really interesting to look at it, read those, and listen to you. So I'm just amazed. And again, hats off for the skill of teaching. Not everybody can do it, and most people say they would never do it. And most people couldn't do it. I'll just tell you that right now. Especially all the critics you have out there that criticize your teaching couldn't do it. But to do that long in special ed and to do as well as you've done in the Teacher of the Year awards, that's amazing, absolutely amazing. You also do the music side of things, production, management, that sort of thing. Go ahead and tell us about that real quick before we bring in our other two gentlemen.
Oh, absolutely. So it's funny, like the music side of it. I've been blessed. When you have producers like Kenny Black and you have producers like, again, my cousin, Jared Cortez, it makes it easier, because me being the CEO of the actual company, leaving the writing and the singing to my wife, leaving the actual production part to these great producers, and I sit back and manage the whole thing, it makes for a really, really good team. So I would be considered the quarterback. My wife would be considered the running back, and those producers, those are the linemen. So it's kind of cool, because I get to sit back and watch genius at work. And I mean, let me tell you, Coach, they're very good at what they do, and that's the reason why they've been so well acclaimed over the last few years as well in their own rights. It's a beautiful thing. There is something to sitting back and being able to make sure that the tracks are right, and my wife is a genius when it comes to writing seasonal songs, like this new single, "We Outside." The weather's breaking. It's beautiful weather. It's about to be beautiful weather consistently. So it's timely that she would pen a song, "We Outside." You know what I mean?
Right.
So she's very, very good with putting out seasonal records, and we get the right music to fit her lyrics, and we put the visual behind it. And like I said, it's amazing to see how it all comes together. I'll say this real quick. We had a 6-hour studio session on Saturday morning. It doesn't take her 6 hours to go in, to do the song and all of that. So we finished in about 4.5 hours, but we block off 6 hours just in case. So I want to say this to all the young, artists and all of that. It's not just about the glitz and glam of the music industry. You have to put in the work. So when you block off these sessions, we've had 8-hour sessions, we've had 10-hour sessions. You have to put the work in. If you want to be great, you can't do average things and expect to be great. So let me put that little seed out there for the would-be recording artists or writers or even music producers. You have to put the work in if you want to be good in this industry.
Yep. And just like any endeavor you take on, athletics, whatever it is, if you want to be good, if you want to be great, you got to put the work in. I tell my son that very thing all the time. It takes work, and if you're willing to put the work in, you can get there. And the other thing strikes me, and I'll stop with this, and bring in our other two hosts, is that a lot of people do a lot of things, but not too many people can do a lot of things like what you're doing and be so successful at it. And again, hats off to you. I mean, everything that you're involved in seems to, just be wonderful and turns to gold. And that's a credit to you and your family, your wife, and everybody involved. The books, the teaching, the writing, the singing, it's all just great. And, a lot of people do a lot of things, but not a lot of people do a lot of things great. And I think you do. And that's why I've become so enamored with you. And they tease me all the time. We had a guest on back when Mickey played, named Charlie Fisher, had long blonde hair down to his shoulders, and I raved about how beautiful his hair was. Well, they gave me a hard time about that. In fact, Mickey bought me a wig. It was a long blonde haired wig, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, they can't get on to me about falling in love with Eugene's hair, but they can get on to me about falling in love with Eugene. So here you go. All right, let's go ahead now. Enough of that foolishness. Let's go ahead and get. We'll bring in Frank Fear. Frank's I don't like calling him a co-host. Frank is the other host. Mickey is the other host. Frank takes care of all the backdoor stuff. He does all the configuration with the electronics and all that, which I have no clue on. I'm lucky I can even get on here, and he takes care of all that for us. Frank, we appreciate you, Frank Fear, and of course our other host, Mickey Plumley. Mickey was a former Mountaineer player back a few years ago, and Mickey always sits in and joins us. So, guys, welcome to the show. I've been yapping long enough here about Eugene and talking to him, so I'm going to give you guys a chance. I know we want to hear a little bit about his Mountaineer days, and I know that's what a lot of people that watch these shows, they like to hear about those things, and I've talked to him many times about them, and they're very interesting stories. So, Frank, we'll start with you, and you can have at him.
Well, first of all, thanks so much for being here, Eugene. You're one of my heroes, one of the guys that to me embodies what it means to be a true mountaineer. And I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. In fact, that opening video actually is from the documentary that I don't know what your role was, if you were executive producer on that, Eugene, but I like that opening montage because it has you walking down the field and then the video of your playing days behind you. And so it's just, and the stats. I mean, one of the things that I think people may not remember is that you were one hell of a kickoff return guy. I mean, I think you had almost 100-yarder against Maryland back in the day.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And the biggest thing, what's funny about that, well, Coach Nealon, God bless him, that, man, so we were such a talented team back then. All of the running backs brought something different to the table, but being versatile meant a lot. When you're playing on a team like that with that much talent, you have to be, being able to play multiple positions and being unselfish, which I love him for that, and that entire staff. That's what he embodied. That's when he brought in other coaches. They believed the same thing he believed, like-mindedness. And it was a blessing to be able to do that, to have against Notre Dame, matter of fact. And I didn't realize this until years later. Somebody had found this and sent it to me, actually. I think I had like 100 and some odd yards of kickoff return yardage against Notre Dame, and they hadn't given up 100 yards all year. So it wound up being a Fiesta Bowl record just in that sense. I think it was like 5 or 6 kickoff returns for like 107, 108 yards. And it happened to have been a Notre Dame fan that sent me that little clip. And of course, the other part of that was, well, you played well, but we won the game. So part of me was like, well, thank you for sending it. But the other part of me was like, ah.
Yeah, and I always said if Major had gotten hurt early on, we'd have been fine. We'd have won.
Listen, I just spoke to Tony Rice a few weeks ago. And a friend of mine who I played high school ball with bumped into Tony in Florida, and he called me right away, put him on the phone. And I made sure I said that to him. I said, let me tell you something. You and I both know with a healthy Major Harris, that's a totally different ball game. We would have beat you guys 9 out of 10 times in any parking lot in the country.
Exactly right.
I didn't think he liked that too much, but he laughed.
Eugene, your work on special teams on this kickoff returns, you averaged over 20 yards per return in your career, didn't you? Or somewhere close to that?
Somewhere close to that. Was actually at one year, I think I was in the top 15 or top 12 or something like that in the country, which again meant a lot when you're talking about the type of talent that we had all around the field. Was definitely appreciative for those opportunities for sure.
Yeah. Well, your point about, contributing in any way that you can contribute to the team's winning and their success, I think that's key on any football team. A lot of kids come out of high school and they don't want to hear that. They were either a star running back or a tight end or a quarterback. And then, they mature a little bit, their body changes, the coach sees a different type of talent in them and says, hey, we could really use you here. Because there is no I in the word team, right? And the more players you see that are born of that ilk and subscribe that philosophy, I think the bigger success you see on the team itself. I think this year's team is a great example of that, of players being able and willing to play where they can contribute in any way in which they can contribute.
Absolutely. No, that is so important. I think we had a situation, and a few people were kind of upset with the backs that we had, myself, A.B. Brown, Andre Johnson, Craig Taylor. We never had a 1,000-yard rusher. Well, that's because, and you have to count Major Harris as well as carrying the ball as well. Well, we all carry the ball X amount of times per game. So when you distribute the ball that much, you're not going to get a guy that's going to carry the ball consistently 20 times, 25 times. It's running back literally by committee. But again, when you have the unselfish attitude and the team goals are more important than your individual goals, you're fine with that. Because there's no doubt in my mind, when we played Louisville my senior year, I had a hurt ankle going the whole year. But that particular game was the most. I think I had 19 carries for like 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was the most any one back carried the ball in one game. So for me, I understood, at least in that system at that time, that's just what it was. And we all understood, we all brought different things to the table, and like you said, if these young kids, when I came out, I don't believe in the star system. Everybody that knows me knows that. So, but back in the day, I would have been considered a 5-star. What we had back then was blue chip, gold chip All-Americans in high school. So I was a blue chip, gold chip All-American. So it would be equivalent to today's 5-star. I never subscribed to that kind of stuff because I believe it doesn't matter what you did in high school. If that can't translate in the college on a consistent level, then who cares if you had 5 stars in high school? Now, I know sometimes people get a little bit upset. Oh, Gene, but why you say that? Because it's the truth. Like, a lot of kids come in with the wrong notion. Like you said, Mickey, you have to come in with the right mindset. Being a star in high school means you got the opportunity and was blessed to get a scholarship for your skill set. But the student part comes into play. If you're not a student, you can't be an athlete. I believe that wholeheartedly. Student athlete, not athlete student. But when you get to your respective university, you better be willing to put the work in. Forget about I'm a 5-star. Everybody were 4 and 5 stars coming out of high school, or they wouldn't be there. So that's just, I'm an old school thinking guy. That's just my mentality when it comes to that stuff.
Along with that, we'll get to this here just a little bit. We want to talk about the transfer portal, the NIL, and those type of things. I know you have some thoughts on that. But we also want to talk about, I don't know how much you get to watch our current team, or if you've seen any the spring game. I don't know if you saw that or not, but I don't know how closely you follow. But we were going to get your thoughts on the 2024 squad and what you've noticed or what you've seen, what you think is going to be the outcome of all that.
Let me tell you something. I'm very excited about the direction of where we're going. You know, whenever the first is, to me, it starts up front. When you got the big boys up front, that's able to sustain some blocks and put people on their backs, and you got some backs the way that we got backs, man, I'm excited. But it also starts with a good quarterback. Having the quarterback that's consistent in your program, 1 to 2, 3 seasons, that stability, it just breeds, excitement, and it breeds confidence for everybody else. I think we're going to be a little bit young on defense, but I also think we can overcome that. People complain about the transfer portal. I say, listen, that's a problem all around the country. My son is the safeties coach at Jacksonville State University down there with Rich Rodriguez. They have the same problems everybody else has. It's the transfer portal is what it is. So I know it giveth and it taketh away. But I think if we're consistent, and I think we will be, I think Coach Brown finally found a niche of what he wants to do offensively and defensively, and with some sound special teams. I'm going to put it out here on this show right here. We should win 10 games. There's no reason why we should not win 10 games.
Yeah, we heard it here first, Frank. We're going to hold him to that. Let's win 10. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? You mentioned the NIL. We've talked about that a lot on here, and we always like to get the former players and coaches' perspectives on the NIL and the transfer portal. We know, like you said, it's not going away. It is what it is. It's here to stay, and we just have to figure out how to use it. And we've discussed that, like, we feel like Coach Brown has figured that part of it out. And one thing we've noticed this year, and Frank will have a graphic here in just a minute. One thing we've noticed is that, we're not losing, it's not like we had a wholesale bailout at in spring ball or last year. And we seem to be bringing in folks that are going to plug in to places where we really need help. And it seems like Coach Brown has realized the level of talent that's needed to compete in the Big 12. And he's bringing in that type of player now. And you have to feel pretty confident in his system, what he's doing now.
I think that's the big thing. And again, if you look back over the last 2 years, and you just said something very key, Coach, bringing in the level of talent that can consistently compete at this level. The problem is, I look at a lot of programs and I watch what they bring in. So if you have, let's use the Big Ten, for instance, because I look at Rutgers. We're right up the street from Rutgers. And I see Shiano figured out as well, similar to Coach Brown, you can't bring a kid in from, I don't care how good he was at a lower level, and expect him to be consistent in the Big Ten. It just doesn't work. It's going to take that young man 1 or 2 years, just as it would a high school kid, to be redshirted to learn how to be consistent at that level. When you start bringing in level for level talent that can compete consistently, that's when you start winning the close games. You start winning 1 or 2 games that you're not supposed to win on your schedule. And that's where that 8-win season turns into a 9 or 10-win season, because you won 2 or 3 games that nobody expects you to win, because in the long haul, you got talent that can compete consistently. Success, to me, that's what it is. It's not a one like flash in the pan type deal. You got to be good consistently. Right. And I think that's what we're going to prove a lot of people wrong this year, because I'm hearing some of the talks I'm hearing some of the talks. Well, we're going to see what they do when they get into the meat of their schedule midway through the season. I think you're right, Coach. I think Coach Brown figured out we got to be level for level, talent-wise, when you go in the transfer portal and get what you need. I'm going to say this real quick. He's not over-recruiting a position. That's important. He's getting what he needs, because if you over-recruit a position, those guys unfortunately become locker room lawyers, and before you know it, they're hitting the portal again. So I see he's bringing in kids that really want to be in Morgantown. They really want to wear, that blue and gold uniform. They really want to wear that flying WV. That's important. Coach Nealon did the same thing. That's important. You got to bring in young people that want to be here. It doesn't matter. They want to be here because this is the right place for them to be. And he's bringing in kids like that. And I think that's where the success is going to come from.
Yeah, we've talked about that, Eugene, and you're absolutely correct. I mean, in his spring practice weekly pressers, he's emphasized we're looking for the characteristics that really have nothing to do with talent. People are tough. They want to be here. They're motivated. They want to learn. They're coachable. And then you add the talent on top of that, and you can see it. And, you said, both of you said something, and Mickey too, that's really important. There's a link between Coach Brown and Coach Nealon and Coach Bowden and Coach Carlin, and Rich Rod too. The very best coaches we've had go back to Pappy Lewis in the 50s. They have similar traits in terms of their ability to bring in the kinds of guys that want to be here. And you're right about this portal. It's the issue everybody's faced with it. Coach Brown has said that. He doesn't want anybody to leave, and yet he knows there's going to be turnover. I mean, this year alone, we'll look at the chart in a second. We've lost about a third of the squad from last year. But most of those players were not going to see a lot of playing time. Just plain and simple.
And I understand that. I really do.
Yeah.
People don't understand. I started my career at Pittsburgh, and I wasn't redshirted. I was one of three true freshmen that wasn't redshirted. I left for a totally different reason. Unfortunately, my sister passed. And the way that her death was handled, the way that whole thing was handled, as a family, just wasn't feeling it. So I decided to go elsewhere. And I thank God that I landed in Morgantown, West Virginia, for many reasons. It wasn't just about football. Coach Nealon, of course, I was recruited. They recruited me to offer me at a high school. So he knew my background. He knew my family. He knew my mom. You know what I mean? He did a great job recruiting. So it wasn't too far-fetched that was one of my 5 schools when I decided to transfer to take visits to. Had I lie to you not, had I taken my visit to Morgantown, West Virginia out of high school, I would have committed to West Virginia out of high school. And who knew? Pitt was my dream school ever since I was a kid. 7 years old, I told my mom I'm going to Pittsburgh because of Tony Dorsett. You know what I mean? You're a running back. You see Dorsett run. That's where I want to go. But I think a lot of young people don't understand how special West Virginia and Morgantown really is. So when I talk to parents and I talk to young people, I tell them, don't get enamored with all this other stuff that you see someplace else. I'm 58 years old. To this day, I have fans that still reach out to me to this day. And what a blessing. What a blessing that is. A lot of it, it's sports related, but more of it is it's the person that they fall in love with that you are. You don't get that every place else. I'm sorry. I mean, I visited Oklahoma. I've had the chance to go to just about any school when I was recruited, every school in the country recruited me. But you don't get the sincere love and admiration. I believe we have the best fans in the country because they're going to love you whether you win, lose, or draw. And like any other fan, they're going to get on you when you lose. But it's when you leave that program that you've never really left. Like I said, I'm 58 years old. And to this day, I can't go anywhere if I have on. And I wear West Virginia no matter where I go. No matter what campus I'm on, my wife always teases me, oh my God, that is so disrespectful. I'll have from head to toe. I'll wear my ring from head to toe And they know, yeah, oh my, well, that's just Eugene. Oh, he loves his alma mater. Yes, I do. Very proud of it. So that's one of the things that I think Coach Brown, Rich Rod, Coach Nealon, the great coaches that you mentioned from years past, that they did have in common. You got to get the right young man. You got to get the right young man to come to that university. But once they see it, it sells itself. You guys know it. It sells itself.
Yeah.
Morgantown sells itself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
here's a question that
one thing, real quick, before we get to the question, I would have to guess that had Eugene gone to WVU to start with, that death in his family would have been handled in a whole different way. I would almost guarantee that. Guarantee it.
Well, on my visit, Coach Neal and I spoke about that for a good amount of time. And it chokes me up to even think about it because I can remember every word he said to me in his office. Every word. That looms like, and again, people don't understand. That's why I love Coach and I love the university so much. I love the people of the great state of West Virginia because for me, it was bigger than football. It was just bigger than football. And that man spoke to me like a father type, like a grandpappy type. You understand? He reminded me of my high school coach, Frank Gargiulo, who I love to this day because they're men's men, if you will. It's the character of the man and what he expects out of his student athletes. You can't get no bigger than that. And you know when you made the right choice? I still talk to Coach to this day. That's when you know you made the right choice. When it's umpteen years later and you still have a relationship with your coaching staff.
Yeah, that says a lot. That sure does. We got a question here from Joey. Says Eugene, during the spring game, I saw sloppy first quarter play, and I'm worried for nothing because they were only having fun. Or am I right to be concerned that the nerves got to them?
No, it's spring. It's spring football. They just having fun. You're gonna have some MAs, missed assignments and all that stuff during spring football. I guarantee they're gonna iron that stuff out. As a matter of fact, when they get to camp, they'll fix some of that stuff. And you're trying to figure out mismatch, like who's going to come in and do what. You're going to plug this guy in. You want to see what this guy can do. So no, the consistency will be there when they hit August camp. They'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think this game is more about spots for people. Figuring out who can do what. Like you said, if they can do numerous things, they want to try them in those spots and try that sort of thing out. I mean, you even see right there in the video that the defense there that they ran where they had, 4 linebackers stacked up behind the nose guard. They're just having some fun, filling some things out. And I'm sure working on some stuff too, looking at some people specifically. And I don't think there's a whole lot to worry about when you watch it. I think in fact, I was kind of encouraged when I watched it. I felt like they looked, when they first started, I thought they looked pretty solid. They smoothed out and thought it looked pretty good. And I'm with you. I just think that, a lot of it is just checking people in different positions and that sort of thing, trying to see if they can plug them in to different spots and that sort of thing. So I don't know that you put a lot of, deep thought and deep concern into a spring game.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't. But again, it's all for fun. I know we went out and had a great time during our spring games all my years at WVU, and it was all for fun because you knew when it was time to hit August camp, that's when it was time to get serious. And, you understand the same little mental errors or whatever that you had in the spring game, you can't bring that into camp. You got to be consistent. Yeah, you got to be consistent.
And we're watching Neil Brown. Frank, I don't think we're allowed to have the sound on this. Is that correct? We just
yeah, there shouldn't be any sound on.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, okay. So we just have to talk over this. But I was going to mention to Eugene as well. We were talking about the transfer portal. You look back at that 88 team, for example, and all the talent that was on that team. Well, first of all, Coach Nealon was known for bringing in players and developing them and turning them into really, really good players. There were some immediate, impact players like Eugene himself, Major Harris, of course. But, if you look back at a team like that and you look at that transfer portal now, you were talking about the running backs there a minute ago. I'm sure there's a few of them that would not have stuck around, with this portal the way it is. Frank's put up
Well,
a graphic here that we can look at, but and Eugene, you can talk on any of this. But Coach Brown on what he learned, he said from the spring practice, a lot of hungry players, which that's a good sign. Benefited from winter conditioning programs, stronger, more physical. We talked about a couple of the players last week that looked like they had grown physically a lot, and that's always encouraging. Improved coverage on special teams, that's definitely something that has to be worked out, and we saw that last year. A lot of problems with especially the kickoff team. Greater overall team depth, and he's talked numerous times about plugging players in, having 2 or 3 people deep at these different positions. Skill players improving. Nico, the quarterback, one of the most improved players, and of course, progress of the defensive backs. They brought a few in the portal, and they seem to be performing pretty well. So Eugene, you can go ahead and talk a little bit about the 88 team and the portal, and then your comments there about Coach Brown.
you know, it's interesting. Obviously, transferring back then is so different than what it was now. You had to sit out a year. You know, you miss a whole year. If we had the transfer portal back then, and I may be stepping out on a limb by saying this, but this is just my humble opinion. The type of young people that coach recruited a little bit different. You wanted to compete. So I don't think we would have had the type of turnover that we see now in this era because it was just a different mentality. So real quick, when I went to Pitt, I was one of 10 All-American running backs. Yeah. In that running back room, there was 12 backs. 10 of us were high school Americans. And so I remember Wooten, one of the running back, I think he was one of the assistant running back coaches with the Dallas Cowboys. He came in and he was asking Andy O'Bannock, our running back coach at the time at Pitt, you're not keeping all these guys. There's not enough footballs to go around. Somebody's leaving, or a group of them are leaving. And we wound up, everybody found their own way, but that didn't, just using that analogy, it didn't stop me from going to Pitt because there were other backs there. If you're good and you know you're good, you want to compete.
That's right.
So that, I mean, the kids that Coach Nealon brought in and that staff recruited, we were all cut from the same cloth. You know what I mean? So when you think of even back then, at quarterback, Brownie Nagel transferred from WVU because he didn't want to sit behind Mage. So he wound up going to Louisville and having a great career, wound up being drafted by the New York Jets. Now, there's certain guys like that at a certain position where you're not playing 3 or 4 quarterbacks. We know that. So if a quarterback is sitting behind a guy like Major Harris, you might want to leave. I mean, barring injury, he's just that good. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But at the running back position where you can share, you got 3 and 4 backs in rotation, you got 2 fullbacks in rotation, a little bit different. You got receivers. We had a receiving core that was better, to me, just as good as anybody in the country. And they all played. Offensive linemen, you're shuffling in 8 to 9 linemen offensively and defensively. So I just think we were different in a mentality. Now, where Coach Brown, unfortunately, is right now, I think it's the culture of the kids, of the young people, the way that they think. That's a problem, just the way that they think. They come in thinking, if I don't like the water that you're serving me, I'm hitting the portal. It's just a different deal. And it's not just in Morgantown, it's everywhere in the country. So he's doing, in my opinion, a really good job of finding the nucleus of talent that's on the high school level that has to be developed, plus getting in the portal and saying, you know what? What's going to be the best fit for my program, for our program? Are you going to get a kid that's going to come in and the first thing he's talking about is, Coach, how much money am I going to make my NIL? Or are you going to get a kid that's going to come in and say, I know the business side of it now with the NIL stuff. I get it, Coach, but I want to earn my keep. Before you give me any NIL, let me become a starter.
That's right.
See, for me, let me get that kid. Because typically that kid knows I got to come in and I'm not promising you anything. I'm promising you a scholarship and the ability to compete. Not that I'm going to give you $250,000 and you're going to play special teams. And now I got to pay another kid who's starting ahead of you $500,000. I'm just throwing out numbers. It makes no sense. So I think he's doing a really good job of finding that the balance in the two. Let me get good high school kids that want to compete, and they do understand the NIL, they do understand the portal. Because I'm hearing now the portal is really hurting high school recruiting.
That's right.
There's some programs, they're not even recruiting high school kids anymore. They're specifically only bringing in portal transfers. I feel bad that I feel bad about that because the high school kid is now being overlooked.
Yeah, that's really one of the big drawbacks with it. And you know, I've seen that just here on the local level. My son plays basketball at Wheeling, and you see it happening there. These high school kids just don't get a chance, you know, and they'll bring in one, maybe two, and they redshirt them, and you know, it's just tough on these high school kids. They're just not getting recruited like they used to, unless they're just, you know, super athletes. They're getting left behind, which is kind of sad. Do you real quickly here? Do you and here's Frank put up another graphic here, looking at the transfer portal and where we are, who we lost, and who we picked up. And you know, people can read that, so we're not going to read through all of it, but you know, there are some names that stand out. And Frank, I'm going to stop talking and let you talk a little bit about this. You pay more attention to this than I do, so give us your take on this portal.
Yeah, I think what Eugene said is absolutely the case, especially now. Typically, this would be a season where we'd be focusing on the high school recruiting, and the portal closed yesterday. That doesn't mean that we won't have more people coming in because that's still active, but players can't declare until after the season when the next portal opens. But what's interesting about this is that even though we lost 24 players, which is about a third of an 85-man squad, and only brought in 10, you can see we're ranked very high nationally, which tells you something very simple, that the quality of the players coming in as they're evaluated talent-wise is greater than the players we lost. And there were some surprises here. I mean, Horton just came last year. Montre Miller was really high on my list from Kent State, and he is now being recruited. Notre Dame is one of the schools that offered. He just declared this week. And just about every player that left West Virginia now has been picked up by another school, except for the ones that very recently. But I think what this says, Eugene, is, and I think Coach Brown is taking the exact right approach. You know, it is what it is. I can't change it. It's the system. So let's pick the guys that are going to really do well for us. These two DBs from Northwestern look excellent. And talking about freshmen, boy, I was really impressed with Zay Jennings on Saturday. He's a Cincinnati defensive back. He's only 6 feet, 185 pounds. But he intercepted Nico's pass with, I think, 3 seconds left in the first half that denied Nico's team a score. He looks awfully good and may get playing time as a freshman. And again, what he's doing, which we talked about in this show, Eugene, Brown's recruiting West Virginia kids. This Judah Price running back from Sophia, West Virginia. And, you know, you look at the guys that scored touchdowns. Clement had his touchdown pass on Saturday. Again, another West Virginia kid. Preston Fox scored a touchdown on a reception. Another West Virginia kid. So I think you're right. I think what we have here is it's a market system, and kids are landing where they think they can play more, and he's bringing in some really good players.
That's important. I mean, you have to do that. And I also think I'm so glad to see that we are recruiting West Virginia, the state of West Virginia, a little bit more. You know, my years there, we didn't have many kids from West Virginia that were scholarship, you know, players from West Virginia. We had a few walk-ons here and there that wound up earning scholarships during, I think, my sophomore and junior years. And by the time I was a senior, we had a few. But it's good to go and really dig deep in your own state to get some of that homegrown talent. I believe that wholeheartedly. I respect what Coach is doing. I really do. There's a lot of people who may say, well, he should do this, he should do that. But to be ranked 17th in the portal transfer grab, right? It shows you that he's getting the quality players that's going to be able to come in and play and compete right away. The only thing I'm against, and not just at WV, but anywhere across the board, you got to be able to tell these young people the truth. And I think that's one of the reasons why we will continue to do well. Like Coach Neal, and I think Coach Brown has that innate ability to look you in your face and tell you, I'm not going to tell you you're going to come here and be a star. But again, I'm going to tell you to come here and have the opportunity to play if you compete and be consistent. To me, that's the only thing that matters. I would rather somebody tell me that than to tell me you're going to come in and play right away and don't worry about working hard. No, because that kid will be in the portal the next week, because that's really it's not realistic, especially at this level. So I'm glad that the kids that we're getting at WVU, I really am. I'm proud of them. I think if they stay the course, they're going to have a chance to get a great education, play big-time college football in a beautiful facility with fans that adore you. That's the message that I would tell a kid, and that's the message that I do tell kids about WVU. That's the place that you want to go if you're serious about, like I said, all the things that I just mentioned. It's not a money grab. I get it. Everybody's telling you this school is telling me to give you $250,000. This school, it would be $300,000. I had a kid tell me, well, I get $200,000 just to talk to somebody on the phone. I said, well, you know what? That couldn't be my phone. That could not be my phone.
Not going to work on your phone.
Yeah.
Well, I think also, Eugene, I think you'll agree with this. It's not only, whether you have a chance to play or not, but I see a lot of the high school kids that we've signed, they're coming on board in 24, 25, have commented on, they got the sense that the coaching staff wasn't only concerned about them playing football at WVU, but they're also concerned about them getting their education, them leaving the school, with a degree, and for their development, as a young person. That's the same sort of value system that Coach Bowden and Coach Carlin had, back in the day. I think it's increasingly important today. And I think a young man, if he listens to his parents particularly, is going to really like that sort of approach to the game. I think the other factor at work now that's changed dramatically from, you mentioned when you came on as a freshman, you had 4 years of eligibility and you expected to start for 4 years. When I played, freshmen weren't eligible until the, Marshall airplane crash. That's what brought the freshman eligibility to being in the NCAA. But, I wanted to start all 3 years. I think in today's environment, most kids, if coaches are honest with them, and I think kids will pick up on this, I think the tact is, look, if you come to West Virginia University and play ball for us, here's probably what's going to happen. Unless you're a major talent, like a Major Harris or Pat White, we're probably going to redshirt you 1 year, and we're going to put some beef on you. We're going to get you in a good weight program, build up your body and your stature. And, in the second year, you may play some for us, but what we're going to groom you to do is be a starter your junior and senior year. And you'll have 2 solid years playing every down if you develop the way we think you can develop. I'm sure, to get a kid like Nico Marchiol, they had to use an approach like that with him because, they had Garrett Green. I'm sure they didn't tell Nico, look, you come here, you'll have a chance to compete against GG. But odds are we're going to take some time, develop you as an athlete so you can be more successful in your junior and senior year as a starter. And I see more and more coaches, working on that sort of philosophy. You see that sort of thing happening as well or not?
I think that's a great philosophy because it's about being completely honest. And I know when I came out, Tom Osborne at that point at Nebraska was the only coach, similar to what you just said, Mickey, who sat me down and said, listen, you're a great back. I get it. Everybody wants you. I get that. Alabama, Georgia, all these schools, Auburn, whatever. Okay. We have 2 backs that are in your class, that's coming, that's already committed. That's going to be in your class if you commit. Above them, above you guys, we have 3 other backs, and above the 3 backs, we got 1 starter who is phenomenal. I can't tell you that you're going to come in and play above those backs. They've been here. So I'll tell you what, you come here, similar to what you just said, Mickey, we're going to redshirt you. We're going to build you up. You run a 4.3 now, so speed is not an issue. You know what I mean? But we're going to put some weight on you, put you in our weight, our strength conditioning program. You'll play by the time you're a junior. Do you know at every school that recruited me, he was the only coach in me coming out of high school to tell me that. The only coach.
Yeah.
Tom Osborne.
The only honest man.
Like it was yesterday.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting I was going to say what's interesting about Brown's philosophy, and if you have a chance, watch his post spring game presser. And also, you know, it's on the WVU Sports channel. And there's also a video, a young man I did not know. And his name is Avery Wilcox. He's a special teamer who came in as a walk-on. And during his press conference, Coach Brown talked about Avery Wilcox. His dad is from Milton, West Virginia, who also came to Morgantown as a walk-on. And he won the Nicollet Award as the top walk-on. And Brown didn't know this. When they gave it to his son, they didn't know that his father had also won that award. And he talked about the fact that we want to develop this kid. We developed him as a walk-on, and he had the motivation, the desire to play on special teams. And, you know, he's getting better and better. And what was beautiful, I then went to the player's video, and he absolutely blew me away. I mean, there are almost tears in my eyes because this is a guy that represents West Virginia University as a walk-on. He's getting some playing time. He's never going to be a star, but he wants to be on that team, and you just get flushed with pride.
Yeah, those are the kind of guys you want. That's for sure. A couple of things here, time-wise, but you mentioned Miller in the portal, Frank. Heard an interesting thing yesterday. I was coming home from work and had the talk show on Tony Creedy and those guys, listened to them, and they were talking about him getting an offer from Notre Dame, and they thought it was very odd. He had an offer from Jacksonville State, and I think that was it so far. And they just said it's so strange because, you know, you have Notre Dame, you have Jacksonville State, and there's nobody else even involved with him. And they thought how strange it was. The other thing, and I was glad to hear, they talked about the scholarships. I think they have 85 scholarship players, I believe, is what they're allowed. And we're at that number. And that, to me, means that we haven't lost a lot of scholarship players, you know, because our scholarship roster is full, which I think is a very good sign. I know we're pushing on time just a little bit here. We wanted to transition into a couple of other things. Eugene, we'd love for you to stick around with us, if you will. We've got about 15 more minutes here. We're going to talk a little bit of WVU baseball and basketball, and then probably get back to some football. But Frank, I know you watch the games. You send me texts. I try to watch as much as I can. WVU's on a four-game winning streak right now. They had a sweep over the weekend, and they of course whooped up on Pitt last night, which we're all thrilled about. Beat Pitt 11-1.
11-1, baby.
It don't matter if it's tennis. We're happy when we beat Pitt.
Yeah, there was a great WVU crowd at that game in Pittsburgh. That game was over just about when it started, 6-0 after the first 2 innings. And Kathy Fear, who's an alum, and I are watching the game. I'll tell you, that pitcher with 6'6", he is. I'm trying to remember his name here. Was pitching last night, and he's 6'7", 6'6".
Yeah, he's a big
Gavin Van Kampen, who's now 7-1. I wouldn't want to face that guy. Wow.
No, not with a baseball in his hand or a knife.
Lots of leverage.
Yeah. So we got the Cincinnati series at Cincinnati coming up this weekend. Cincinnati is very much like some of the other teams we played. They're middle of the road in the conference in both batting and And pitching, West Virginia, as you said, Greg, is on a roll, 4 straight. A lot of offense. We didn't have a lot of offense against Texas Tech, but we certainly had that against Baylor. I mean, we had a lot of offense. I've got the numbers here. Total, we outscored them 36-11 and only gave up 9 earned runs. And Oklahoma, which is in first place by a game, has a very tough series this weekend at Texas Tech. And so, if things go well for West Virginia, they could well be tied or in first place. Keep our fingers crossed. And then a big game next Wednesday at home on national TV, ESPN2 against Penn State.
Yep. Well, I encourage everybody to check that out and watch about. I know you guys probably laughing at my glasses I have here. I have to buy readers. I went to the eye doctor and they won't give me any glasses yet because of my diabetes. So my sister-in-law gave me those pretty pink readers to wear. So trust me, I caught a little bit of flack at work today about it. So y'all see me wearing those things. Don't think I'm trying to clown you. But yeah, the baseball team playing well. And that sweep was important. It's got them back up in the race again, and hopefully they can keep it going down the stretch here and maybe pull that regular season championship out. Be awesome to see. Basketball wise, more news on the basketball front. We talked about this. We felt that we were going to start seeing some people coming in, and boy, have we ever. We've got our roster basically is going to be completely brand new, and we've brought in some nice players. There's the graphic on it. Again, Frank, I'm going to let you talk about these guys. You know more about them, and I just look at their names, see where they're from, see what their stats are. You kind of follow this and keep track of all of it. Talk about this transfer portal and how it's working out for us right now.
Yeah, going back to what Eugene talked about earlier with this portal, this was, this is a lot of this is new because both portals were active and they both closed this week. Basketball on Monday closed, football closed yesterday. And we predicted on the show last week, we didn't predict. I mean, on3.com basically said that this Toby Okani was 100% for West Virginia. And the next day it was announced. So he's one of the new guys. We talked about Harris and Hansberry last week, both transferred from Illinois. Obviously, the new associate head coach had a lot to do with that. Okani, Illinois, Chicago. He has 1 year left. And then just yesterday or today, I can't remember, Eduardo Andre from Fresno State by way of Nebraska before that announced. So he's the big man. And then today, Ofri Neva basically said, I'm committed for the year. So 13-man roster, we're halfway there. And another thing that was announced today, if you go down to transferred, Kerr Carissa announced that he's going to Kentucky. That was really surprising. Yeah, he's going. And then after the show last week, I think the next day, Sumnick announced that he would be going to DePaul. So Greg is absolutely correct. That the names in red are essentially the people who played last year and many of them would have played this year, and none of them will be playing this year. And Ofri is the only returning player, didn't play much last year, only 2.6 points per game. He's the only one that's going to be on this year's roster. They're making offers to high school players. One of the players they wanted in the portal from Drake, who played under DeVries, On3 says he's a lock for North Texas. So that may change, but Dayton Wright doesn't look to be coming to Morgantown, at least according to that source. But you'll see a couple of three really good high school players, Frost, Briscoe, Lewis, scattered around the country, East Coast and Midwest, with Briscoe at Indianapolis. They're going after them, and we'll just see what happens.
Frank, I may be out of line here saying this, but I've said from the beginning, there a few weeks ago, people were antsy and harping about, we haven't brought any players in. We're losing, a player once a week, and we're not bringing anybody in. I really felt like, there was a lot going on behind the scenes, obviously, and there was. And I also still feel that Coach DeVries, with his focus on defense, you know, you look at somebody like Kerr Crease, and maybe he can play at Kentucky because they run up and down the floor and they shoot the ball. That's all they do. I really think with his focus on defense, that there was some messages sent to some of these guys that, hey, you don't really fit our system, and you know, we'll help you go somewhere else. And I really feel like that's what happened with several of them. And you know, he's got his own style of play. And if you watched this team last year, there were some talented players. I mean, we had talent, a lot of talent, but there were times when their defense was absolutely horrendous, and it was almost like a lack of effort on defense, like they just didn't play it. And you know, I'd get so frustrated watching them play defense, and I just thought, you know, this guy, you watch his teams play, they play defense. And I think again, we talked about the football players and culture and the type of kids you want, you know, the attitudes you want people that want to be here, you know, and he's going to want people that are going to want to play defense. My brother and I were talking this morning on the way down to Morgantown about Coach Huggins, and back when we were known as Press Virginia. I said, you know, he had a certain element of player there that just full court up and down the floor, defense all over the place. And I said, you know, it's hard to understand why you can't just keep doing that. I said, but when you think about today's athletes and their players, they don't want to run up down the floor and play defense. They want to run up down the floor and play offense. And I think DeVries brings that different element in defensively and defensive minded. And, you know, when you watch, of course, you know, I'm more of a basketball guy. I know more about that than football. I don't know much about any of it. But when you watch these teams play in that NCAA tournament, you see, you know, the teams that are good and advanced play defense, you know. And some of these teams lock down defensively, and they're the ones that keep winning, you know. And I mean, you got to be able to put the ball in the basket. That's the name of the game. But you got to stop people too. And last year, you know, we would put the ball in the basket, but we would lose 98-93, you know. So I think that's a lot of this people moving out. I think they've just given them the message, hey, we got other plans, you know. And I may be totally out of line with that, but I really feel like that's kind of what's going on here. I don't think a lot of them are leaving because they're unhappy or anything like that. I just think they're leaving because they know they're probably not going to fit into this system, and they want to go somewhere where they're going to play. And that's fine. You know, that's fine. The only thing that worries you when you have a big overturn in a roster like this is getting that continuity, you know, getting these guys playing together and chemistry and all that. A lot of people don't believe in all that, but I think there's a lot to be said for people that play together for 2 or 3 years. Again, you see mid-majors having success because they have 5 players out there that are seniors, you know, that's been playing together for 4 or 5 years. So you see them have success. So, you know, I think there's a lot to be said for that. But anyway, Frank, I'm going to let you do some plugging here of what we got coming up here in a week or so. I know that's going to be a lot of fun for all of us. So I want you to, you know, more of the details than I do. So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about that just a little bit before we sign off.
Yeah, look at that comment by Timothy. We appreciate. Thank you, Eugene, very much. You're inspiring. You always are, and one of our all-time favorite, and I would say WVU players. Yeah, terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a major announcement here, and if I could bring this up here, you will see it. Is that I'm going to put you guys over here. There we go. And I'm going to bring this up so we can see it a little bit better. Is that we will not be on next Wednesday night, and we'll announce this online as well. We encourage everybody to watch the West Virginia Penn State baseball game on ESPN2 at the time we would be on. We're very pleased to say, because of the invitation of Dave Voigthofer, whose brother Terry played at WVU, was co-captain of the 71 team. We're going to be in Moundsville, West Virginia. Greg and I will be, and Mickey will be with us virtually. I'll be signing books for the Band of Brothers books that focuses on the 66 to 70 Mountaineers, but we're going to do a live feed. And I talked with the good people up in Moundsville today at the Marshall County Co-op, and they suggested we do it, Greg, between 2 and 3:30. So we're going to do a live feed on Saturday, May 11th from 2 to 3:30 rather than at our regular time, 7 o'clock next Wednesday night. And we expect a crowd of 2,000 to 3,000 people walking through the co-op. You can see beautiful ag co-op. It's Mother's Day, so people will be picking up flowers, buying plants, et cetera, et cetera. So we've been there before. Mickey's been there. Greg's been there. I've been there. It's a great place, great people. Northern Panhandle is fantastic. And if any of you is watching and you live in that area, please stop by at the co-op at 411th Street.
There you go. Looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Frank's going to be signing books. I'm going to be like eating hot dogs and sampling the apple butter and all that kind of stuff. I'll have to report back on that after I'll probably be over on a hay bale sleeping somewhere, but while Frank's signing books. So I'll just kind of stand there like I'm your security guard. Frank, how's that?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Greg. I'll tell you what they told me today is they have a deal: hot dogs and a soda or pop, however you want to call it, for a quarter.
Oh, can't beat that, man! Wow, I'll be in the car sleeping.
Listen, where is this located?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys, listen, this has been a blast. Eugene, we can't thank you enough for taking some time to be on here. I know you're kind of busy, but we appreciate you stepping out here, taking some time with us. Absolutely enjoyed it. We love talking to you. I do, and we love watching your success. It's always fun to see what's going on in your life, and again, we keep up with you on social media and those types of things. And I tell you what, fascinating, and we so much appreciate you for joining us. You've been a super guest, and so fun to talk to, and we will definitely, if you're willing, to get you in your spare time, you come back and join us again. Whenever.
It's always a pleasure and an honor to be on the program. So whenever you need me, just let me know. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much. One of our all-time favorites, Eugene Napoleon. Again, folks, if you haven't checked this guy out, you need to do it. He's fascinating, great motivational speaker, great books, great musical family. I'm telling you what, she's awesome. Maya, his wife, is very impressive. So you need to check out as well. Frank, Mickey, thank you guys for getting in here and helping out with this. We appreciate you as well. And Frank, there you go. Here's the Reflections 2.0. Check out that suit, man. That's I need to get one of those. That's looking right there.
That's great.
I've got that book right on my end table by my chair, and I just pick it up and start flipping through and looking at I've looked at it about 10 times already and went through it. Very inspirational, and again, you look at it and there's going to be something you can relate to in every single thing that's in there. I guarantee you. So make sure you can get that Eugene on Amazon. Is that correct?
Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
And Barnes and Noble. Okay, there you go.
Yes.
So we got two authors on here tonight. So man, Mickey, we're going to step up our game a little bit. There's another fine photo of Eugene on the field.
Yeah, next time we need you to wear that blonde wig, Greg. You got to wear that on the show one of these nights. Okay, so you be back in your prime.
I'll do that.
Hey, Eugene, I want to thank you. Thanks for coming on, Eugene.
Thank you so much,
Eugene. Great. Well, we appreciate you too, and don't forget to look up my friend up there in Jersey City if he gets a chance. And I'll just close with this.
Yes, sir.
I'll just close with this. It's a great day to be a Mountaineer, no matter where you are. And it's less than 120 days until the Mountaineers shock the world by taking down the Penn State Nittany Lions in Morgantown, West Virginia. You heard it here, folks.
There you go. Sounds like a good plan. All right, Eugene, thank you again. We appreciate you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We look forward to seeing you again next weekend when we come from the co-op and Frank's book signing. That's going to be a lot of fun. We hope you'll join us for that. Thank you again to Eugene Napoleon, Frank Fair, and Mickey Plumley. For all those guys, I'm Greg Christ. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night, everyone.